Do you have a liquor of choice when you get cocktails? Like, is there something you look for?
Vodka.
Vodka.
Also, I think it's like just clear liquor in general, but it doesn't like affect me as much. Wine is probably the worst for me.
Really?
Yeah.
I love wine. Like if I'm going out for like a party or like, oh, let's all go out and like we're going to go party tonight in Hollywood or something like that.
You'll just get a glass of wine.
My favorite thing.
Amazing. Welcome to Sips and Clips. My name is Leanne McFalls.
My name is Michael Schusterman.
Today it is just us two, and we've decided to make an episode that just talks about unemployment and what we do, each of us personally. We've had a few questions, or at least I've had a few people come up and ask me about what I do during unemployment. So we thought it would be good to make a whole episode of it. And then we can just share our unemployment stories. But we got to start with what we're sipping on. So Michael, what do you got today?
You know, it's a very exciting day. Leanne and I are both drinking alcohol. I am drinking a pre-made old fashioned from Batch and Bottle.
What's the brand?
The brand is Batch and Bottle, but the whiskey itself is Monkey Shoulder. Which is, I really like old fashioned. Whiskey is my favorite. That's my little bougie bitch, is me drinking some whiskey. And,
well, now you're like an old man. Old fashioned.
I think I've always been an old man. I think like I have the soul of an old man.
Yeah, I think that we've talked about the fact that you give off old man vibes.
I 100% do. I have and always will. And so, yeah, I like old fashioned. So I'm drinking an old fashioned. Cassidy is joining me in drinking an old fashioned as well. And yeah, so for the first time in a long time, drinking on some actual alcohol on Sips and Clips.
I opted out. No offense to Michael. Whiskey is not always my favorite drink. So I opted on this is going to sound really embarrassing, but as you know, people, I don't like to waste food or drinks. So I am drinking half a can of Bud Light from Friday night. And I am also drinking a Shirley Temple that I got at dinner because, goddamn, I love Shirley Temples. And I used to go to a bar that had trivia night, and I always got a Shirley Temple. And we went so often that the bartender knew that I wanted a Shirley. So he would come up to me and be like, Shirley Temple? I'd be like, yep, that's me. But yeah, so very exciting night for us. We're recording this at night.
It's our last episode before we take a break for the holidays.
Let's get into it.
We're probably going to hop around a little bit. It's just going to be a bit of a conversation. But I think when you're unemployed, it's helpful to like break your life up, especially with what we do, where like unemployment is such a regular part of the job. It's like, I feel like for my friends and family who like have more steady careers, unemployment is really this thing that can just be a total wrench in the system that just destroys your like life and like your ability to find like meaning in the world, for lack of a better way. I think it's the same thing for editors, but it happens more often that it just becomes a fact of life that you have to get used to. There will be periods of time where you're unemployed literally for a week and other times where you're unemployed for a year. And that just means you have to find your peace with God with it. And so I thought it'd be helpful to break it up into financial, like tangible, actionable things you do with money having to do with unemployment. Networking and job connections. What are you doing to like staying sharp? What are you doing to like try to find that next gig? And then also just like life stuff. How are you dealing with like the life things that unemployment throws at you? So we may hop around a little bit, but I kind of thought those would be the three categories.
Well, why don't we start with the life stuff, since you brought up how much it can kind of shadow your world, I should say. And it's funny because when I do talk to my family about, oh yeah, I work and I don't know when I'm working, like I feel like that's the number one thing that everybody is always like, I could never do that. How do you know when your next job is coming? Like I could never do that. And so, yeah, I think it's a very interesting type of lifestyle.
Well, then how do I
do it?
Well, no, I was going to say, if you're talking about friends and family, I'll say the first thing is I get this question from my family. I'll get it from my friends too who don't work, and they just go like, "Oh, well, why can't you just like find a job? Like, isn't there must be like a film job board?" They just presume that because every other industry has these kinds of systems for when people are unemployed to like find that next gig, people just, I think, naturally assume that film must have a system. And like, you know what, for good reason, there should be a more regimented way to find a system. But basically every time anybody tries to set up a system, it doesn't work out.
Every time I'm on something, let's say I'm working on like a Lionsgate movie. They're like, well, does Lionsgate have any other openings?
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, that's not how it works. So, and I think the way that I tell people, like I explain to people is just like, no, like it's not, I'm not on staff with them.
Yeah.
And I try to say like it's by project. It's because people also, I feel like people kind of get an understanding of what contractors are.
Yes.
Possibly.
But we're the weirdest contractors because like we are contractors for like a year. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, so it's
and we
like,
have W-2s. We don't have 1099s.
yeah, exactly. And so it's like,
Generally speaking.
you know, if I meet you and I don't work in entertainment, I'm like, oh, Leanne works for Lionsgate.
Right,
Like that's
right.
what I think in my brain. And so I don't understand why when one project ends, you're not on the next one. But yeah, you know, for the people listening who don't know, yeah, it works on a project by project basis. You know, there's the famous adage, which is if a problem was easy to solve, it wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
And so it just doesn't work. There's no easy solution to unemployment in Hollywood. And there's no job board. Yeah, you know, sometimes when the work is really booming, yeah, then it's like there's jobs everywhere. They're on Facebook. I mean, like I can't open Facebook without seeing a million job posts. But when the work is like right now in this slowdown, for sure, it's definitely just like it's a patience game, man. Like I just kind of got to wait and see what happens, and you just keep doing the same old that you can, and then you wait for the cracks to break. You know?
Yeah, this also reminds me of like, you know, when I'm not working, I have a lot of anxiety of waiting, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm someone, and I'm sure a lot of people are like this, but it's like I feel like I need to do something. Like I have to feel like I'm being productive towards my job. So it's like even if I decided to, I don't know, like watch a video on how to do XYZ, how to use a program, it's like, okay, cool. I feel like, or even if I send an email, it's like one email out to someone, I'm like, oh my God, I did it. I'm stepping towards it. I'm like making headway. And so I try to
basically give yourself a job.
Yeah.
Like your job. I you know, I kind of do the same thing. Like I feel like when you are unemployed for that first time, especially that first time in Hollywood, it's like it does feel like the world around you is collapsing, like for sure. And I feel like it's really easy to tell yourself a really easy story about people's careers and be like, oh, they did this movie, then they did this movie, then they did this movie. And you can just look around at other people's resumes or other people's IMDb's or careers and see just like a very linear path. And it can be really frustrating to feel like you're not on a linear path or that things aren't panning out for you. But everyone's resumes is filled with bullet holes that they're just not telling you about, basically.
Right.
And so I'm totally with you. I mean, I think like as humans, like we are naturally designed to just need shit to do. Like you need a project, you need something to take care of.
You know, I'm reading this book that actually talks about how we're programmed to just want to problem solve and just have goals.
Yes.
So when you're unemployed and you don't have that anymore, it just kind of like becomes stagnant.
So like your job should be hunting for a job.
Exactly.
Like that's like a really good way of thinking about it. Like you should spend 5 or 6 hours a day hunting for a job, emailing people, networking, whatever you got to do to just like feel like you have something you're working towards, because otherwise you just spiral. I think, you know, if you're just sitting alone and with your own thoughts, I think it really starts to eat you.
I was going to ask, once you're on unemployment, what is the longest that you can go until you start to go crazy? Because I feel like once you're off a job that you've been at for like months and months and months, you're like, oh my God, a break. But then eventually you get to be like, oh my God, I'm getting so crazy.
No, in all honesty, the day one.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, but like, and the people that know me will be laughing because like the kind of person I am is like, I have to feel useful in order to feel like a person. And so I have to do a lot of anxiety mediation strategies when I'm unemployed and really give myself something to do. And like, I try to like work out way more than I ever do when I'm employed, when I'm unemployed. I try to like write scripts. I try to like do shorts. Like I try to do stuff because otherwise I go fucking nuts. Like truly, I go like, it's like a man like who's going through withdrawal from Coke, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like I am like totally not okay when I'm unemployed. So
I was going to ask what you do, like, you know, you're dealing with the anxiety. So you work out, I
do a lot of working out. I write a lot of scripts. I'm going to probably give advice on the show that I don't follow myself. I'm not a big networker when I'm unemployed. I don't feel super compelled to network when I'm unemployed, weirdly enough. I think I'm just like, I don't, and this is definitely not the advice I would give to most people, but I'm just somebody who I've always felt like the show that's right for me will find me. And I'm further enough along in my career. Like I'm not at the top of my career by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm further enough along in my career at this point that I know a lot of people in editorial. Mm-hmm. And I like to spend time in editorial with people I genuinely enjoy. And by part of that is like, if I meet like an editor at a party or something like that, or at a networking event, I'll absolutely follow up and be like, let's get drinks again if I like them, if I think that they're like a genuinely good or interesting person. But I'm not generally one these days to cold email people. Maybe I will occasionally if there's like a show I'm really particularly interested in trying to like throw my hat into the ring for or something like that. Or if I really admire an editor, which I have done, if I think an editor is just fucking the bee's knees and I want to meet them because I'm a fan, like I will do that. But I generally like to do a lot of my networking while I'm employed. And then when I'm unemployed, I'm going to kind of retreat into myself and take care of a lot of stuff. I'll do like a lot of doctor's appointments or dentist appointments and stuff like that. And then I'll just kind of wait, which maybe I'll change that strategy as we go forward in life, but that's kind of always been my approach. What about you?
As far as like dealing with anxieties and all that, I think I do make it a point to try to work out every day, and that it almost becomes like one of those like, okay, how many more hours in the day do I have until I can go to sleep?
Which is
like
remarkable how many hours in the day there are when you're unemployed. It's agonizing. I mean, truly. I mean, when you're employed, it's like, fuck, I got no time to do anything in my day. When you're unemployed, it's like, there are so many hours in the goddamn day.
So like, I was going crazy all of last year. So last year was the longest time I had been unemployed. I was unemployed for a year and 4 months.
Wow.
So I was going crazy, and I was talking to my psychiatrist, and he was like, what's actually really helpful is if you just write out a schedule of your day. It could be anything. Like it could literally be from like getting a shower, eating breakfast to like working out. So I started doing that. I started to be like, okay, wake up at 9. And I think the other thing that may or may not help people too is like I tried to keep a pretty consistent sleep schedule. So I tried to be like, okay, I'm going to go to bed at 11. And then I'm going to wake up at like 8 or 9, whatever the time was, because I was afraid that once I did get a job, my schedule is going to be all messed up.
Well, it's also like, I'm 100% with you on the schedule thing. It's exactly the same thing I do. I like trying to be like, I write from these hours to these hours, even if it's not like a script I'm working on, if it's a journal, like just do something. Maybe do a little bit of then be like, okay, from this hour to this hour, I'm going to job hunt on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. And then I'm also going to send some networking emails for 2 hours. I try to do the exact same thing. And then the sleep thing is so important because otherwise you become a zombie. I mean, it's so easy to become a degenerate slob.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which I absolutely have been in periods of my life like that, where it's like, I'm going to bed at 2 a.m. and waking up at 1, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so easy to do that when you're unemployed because you're like, I have nowhere to be. I got no one reporting to. But I totally with you. Even if you're tired, it's really important to, when you're unemployed, especially, wake up at a reasonable hour.
Right.
Which I do not always follow that advice. So people who are like, I know you. I'm like, yeah, I know. I know. I do not always follow that advice.
So yeah, I literally would be like, okay, wake up, do a podcast, like work on also just start a podcast when you're unemployed. That also happens.
That also helps.
Like work on the podcast. And it was like, okay, I'm going to do an online class. Like I started buying classes on like udemy.com. Took a whole Python class for like $10. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do one lesson today for like an hour. And then it was like, have lunch and then work out. And then I even put like watch a movie in there. Like anything that you can think of that you might want to like have a schedule for was like super helpful. And then the other thing, like we were talking about earlier, of just like finding a job becomes your job. I also, unlike Michael, I do network. Yeah,
most people do. And it's what you should do. Again, not advice I would give to anybody. I think you should.
I think I actually, last year, I think I sent more cold emails and messages than I had in my whole life. Because the other thing on top of that is applying for unemployment, and I basically use those emails as my search for a job.
I think this is a good pivot into talking about financial and stuff like that. I want to stand on my political soapbox for 2 seconds if you don't mind. This is something that has bugged me forever. This is really not a political stance, but it is in some ways. Sometimes I feel like there are a certain distinction of people that will give you shit for collecting unemployment as if it's some kind of like...
Really?
Yes.
The face Michael just gave me.
Yes. I just disagree with this philosophy inherently, but I'll just confront it. It is not mooching off of the government to be collecting unemployment. If you look at your pay stub, you pay into this fund. Unemployment is your money that is literally taken from your paycheck to fund an account for the state that pays you out. And the amount that you get in unemployment is determined by how much you pay into it. So nobody should feel shame taking unemployment. It's your money that you are withdrawing from an account that the government is creating for you. It is not you taking money from the government. It is not you taking a handout. I just want to like make that very clear to people. Just that's my like political soapbox of like, you are not anything that anybody tells you are when you take unemployment. It is your money.
All right, Michael.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to make that clear. But just speaking about unemployment payouts, I know I do this when the moment I finish a show, literally the next day I sign up for unemployment. Do you do the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like Michael said, it depends on how much you make. Usually you cap.
It was the cap, $650 a week now?
Is it different
pre-tax,
now?
Pre-tax. How much is it in
$450.
California? I think it's $450 after tax, right?
No, it's $450.
It's $450 a week?
Yeah, it's $400 after tax. Or $405, I should say. Every 2 weeks, you get $810. So yes, I will apply for unemployment like the very next day. I don't know what the website is. Is it CAA.gov or something?
No, it's like EDD. It's
like
EDD.
Yeah.
.ca.gov.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look up California unemployment, like you'll find it. Now you can thankfully have it just direct deposits to your bank account. It's like a lot of paperwork, but honestly,
it's not that much.
Well, because you have to write every
every
quarter,
week. Yeah.
Every quarter, how much you made between like October to January.
That is true.
Like,
you know what? You're right.
So it can be a little tedious, but I promise you that it's 100% worth it.
But I also think unemployment for most people in California, I don't think unemployment alone is generally enough to pay your cost of living.
No.
So we talked about this a little bit on our actuary episode about finances, but I'm curious. I know your last stint of unemployment was longer than you expected, for sure.
Right, yeah.
But I was told you should always plan in a year to be unemployed for 3 months out of the year. That was like the rule of thumb I was taught in college. I would generally say for most people nowadays working in the industry, plan to be unemployed 5 or 6 months out of the year. I mean, 9 times out of 10, when you're on a movie, you're going to work on it for 9 months. But just like with the slowdowns and getting that next gig, it might take you 5 or 6 months to find that next gig, like up to. So I'm an insane person and I plan for a year. But that's because like I am deeply neurotic as a human being. And so I plan financially to be unemployed for a year. What about you? How much do you think you save, or how much do you think like the regular person should be saving for unemployment?
So it's funny because when we were talking about this on the past episode, I did this for a little bit. I had originally planned I was going to be working 8 months out of the year and unemployed for 4. And then when I did the math based on what I was making, I was like, I could easily save more than like 4 months. And then I just didn't do math after that. So I did not take any of the actual advice that Matt probably gave us. But essentially, I don't really plan now for unemployment, which is not good. People don't listen to me. But I think that because I can see how much I have in my high yield savings account, and then I can see obviously how much I'm making. And then I think I sort of did the math when I was unemployed to then be like, okay, I'm on unemployment. How much am I making that month? This is how much I have in my savings. How much is that going to last me?
Yeah.
It's not very forward thinking, which is kind of unlike me, but that's sort of what I do. I just kind of save up and then I take a look at my expenses.
That's what I used to do. I think the only thing that changed my opinion on it was like I did basically the exact same thing for the first 5 years that I worked. But the way that my finances were set up was like I'd get money in my immediate like Wells Fargo savings or checkings, whatever, and then it would immediately transfer away into a brokerage account. And then that would immediately buy the S&P 500. That's basically what I did. Like it was not just the S&P 500. I'm a little more diversified than that, but I would just like dump it into mutual funds and ETFs. And the problem with that was it ended up just causing me to be like a sickening feeling when I had to sell my stocks and assets in order to be like, well, literally all of my money is tied up in this. Like it's tied up in these kinds of brokerage accounts. And it's not that I was like going broke, but it was just like this really shitty feeling every like month or so, selling stocks to pay my rent. Like that sucked.
That's another thing that I did is that all of my money would gets transferred to my high yield savings account. And then my high yield savings account gets transferred to my brokerage account and my retirement, like IRA. So I stopped the brokerage transactions when I was unemployed, and I don't do all of it. I put like a certain amount in every month. So I stopped those transactions, but I kept being able to put into my my high yield savings account, so that when I did need money, I was pulling from the savings account and not my brokerage account.
That's good. So it's kind of similar.
It was like, yeah, it was like a middleman.
I have my like rainy day fund, my quote unquote unemployment rainy day fund is also in a high yield savings account. So it automatically goes there. I have money that goes to brokerage. I have money that goes to my unemployment rainy day fund. I have money that goes to my Roth IRA. Like it gets broken out in this way. Like that's at least the concept behind it. Listen, this is my first time. I haven't been unemployed since I set up this system. So I will let y'all know once I'll report back on how it made me feel. But for me, that's like part of me dealing with that anxiety of being unemployed is like just feeling like, okay, when I'm unemployed, like I know where the money is that's going to fund my unemployment. It's not something I'm going to have to go source or find, right?
I didn't get to mention this on Matt's episodes, really just because we didn't have any time. I have an app where I can manually put in the amount that I'm spending and then the amount that I'm saving, and you can categorize it so you can see I spent this much on food, I spent this much on my car bills, and you can like kind of easily see it. I know there's a bunch of apps that can do it, like if you connect it to your bank account. I personally don't like to have those kind of things connected. So I will go to my statements every month and like physically like type in this amount of money for like
you have
beauty.
More patience. You have more patience. I use all those apps. I connect them to everything. One of these days,
I get so scared that my bank account's going to get hacked. So do it at however you're comfortable. I think the app that I call is literally called like spending, and it's like a little wallet.
Okay.
But you can manually put in everything that way if you don't want to connect your bank account.
Well, let's talk a little bit, because we're off that. Let's just pivot into budget. You have to lead one kind of lifestyle when you're employed and another kind of lifestyle when you're unemployed. Are there things you cut back on when you're unemployed?
Going out.
Food
is my biggest weakness.
Oh, it's also mine.
There's nothing like French fries that are just from a restaurant.
Retweet.
You can make all the fries you want out of an air fryer, out of the oven, out of your potatoes, but there is nothing like a greasy basket of French fries. So going out for food is and has always been my weakness. So I think that's one of the things that it's really hard for me to cut back on, especially because it's such a social thing now. So what I will also do, and this may or may not be frowned upon, but if someone does want to get dinner with me, I will preface with them. I'll be like, I'm going to eat here, but I'll come with you and get like fries. Get something like really small. So it's like, I still want to hang out with you. Don't feel bad that I'm not, it's literally just money. Like you order dinner, you order whatever you want. I just want to eat home and we can sit and chat and I can still come with you and hang out and whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's probably a good, I mean, obviously the longer you're unemployed, the more things you have to cut back on as time goes on. I do think there are some things that like if something brings you joy or it's really important to your mental acuity and your mental happiness, I'm generally not somebody who is like, you should cut a gym membership or you should cut like I like AMC A-List. Like I like it. When I was unemployed last time, I kept being like I was beating myself up over paying for AMC A-List when I was like, I really should be cutting back on my spending. But like, in a world where you're just like constantly anxious about being unemployed, it's not terrible to like be spending money on stuff that like keeps you sane. So I think honestly, the answer is probably like it's for everybody to decide what their level of comfortability with. And then if you have to make hard choices, you make hard choices then.
I can get really bad too when it comes to like bills, so I'm like, electric bill, we got to keep everything off. I'm going to keep the AC that's when I let the air get really hot in the apartment because I'm like, I don't want to run the AC because that's going to cost money. Like I know it's pretty bad how much I then end up being money conscious because I'm like thinking of everything that I'm doing that is costing money. So those are the things that I also become like way more aware of, and I try to like quote unquote cut back if I can. I'm like, no, TV's got to go off, water's got to go off. Like I got to go to the bathroom at the at the 7-Eleven so that I don't use the water.
Flush.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not that bad.
My sister had a roommate once that yelled at her about being like, we can't use the dishwasher, it's too expensive. And my sister did the math on it and being like, it's 2 cents. Like it's 2 cents a wash or something. Something ridiculous. And I remember always thinking about being like, oh my God. There's a point where it's like you're being ridiculous. Yeah. So there's a line there. Obviously, like I
don't go to the 7-Eleven bathroom, just for everybody listening. I was just kidding.
Are there any big money mistakes you've made while being unemployed or that you've seen other people make and you want to pretend that you made it so you don't rat out who the person is?
I think some mistakes that I see is literally of what we were just talking about. Like when you're not working, you do have to kind of think about your financial situation. But I've seen people who just don't. And I get it. It's like a big adjustment. You know, you're working and all of a sudden you don't have anything and you have to switch your brain to be like, okay, now the stuff that I used to not worry about, I have to actually think about. I get it. But watching people who aren't working spend money on things that like they clearly don't need, or like on fun, not experiences, but like physically, like I'm going to go buy this video game that's $60. And it's like, I know it's only $60, but like maybe put that away until like you're working again, or ask it for your birthday or Christmas or whatever it is. Like, and I'm sure you're going to probably disagree with me on that one, but
no, actually, I'm totally with you. I mean, I feel like listen, I love video games, right? I'm the first person to love video games, but I'm also the first person to be like, I own a lot of video games. So when I'm unemployed, I don't buy video games. It's like my first thing I cut back on is like, I have a backlog I already don't play. So like the new shiny thing that comes out, I'm going to choose not to wait. I'm going to wait for the sale or whatever. Like I do that.
Yeah.
No, so I actually do think there are certain things like that are like absolutely like you have to decide.
Especially if it's something like a video game that's like, it's going to still be there. You can wait
100%.
a year to not buy it.
You have to just make the critical decision of like what is crucial for your mental health and your sanity and what is not. Again, it's like I agonized over AMC A-List, right? Like absolutely did not need that. I have more entertainment at my fingertips than I could possibly enjoy. But like for me, it was like, no, but I'm still going to these dinners and talking to people about movies and like seeing what is happening and also seeing my friends' movies and like seeing that stuff like really brings me a lot of joy and makes me feel like I'm part of a community. And that like that's not something I'm willing to give up. So I do think like you have to make that balance of like what is crucial to your psyche and what is not.
I didn't get to ask what you cut back on. When
Oh,
you were
me?
Yeah, I didn't get to ask
Number
that.
one is eating out. I agree. I eat out way too much already as is. I should be cutting back on that just like for normal reasons.
Even me, I'm like, I might be 2 or 3 months out unemployed and I already have to, I'm like, I have to stop. I have to
I
stop
do the
eating
same
out.
thing.
Like,
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. Eating out is my number one, without a doubt, my number one flaw. I mean, I cut back on like silly purchases if there's like a silly, or like if I'm at Target and I see a funny shirt, like sometimes I'll just buy it to be like, this is funny, like whatever. I won't do stuff like that, right? Like that stops. I'm a tech junkie. I really am a workflow junkie. Like if there's a new mouse that I think is better than my current mouse, like something that will make me faster or help with my posture, right? Like I'm the first person to buy that kind of shit and be like, oh, this is, I'm going to buy the walking treadmill for my desk, like whatever it is. Like I love shit like that. I cut back on all that type of stuff. I try to cut back on travel, or if I want to travel, I do think it's really important. We didn't really get to it, and I don't really have a question around it, but I had an editor once that will remain unnamed. I once asked him what he does when he's unemployed, and he said, oh, simple. If I'm not on the payroll, I'm not in the country. And I was like, what? And he's like, he was like, the moment I'm done with the show, I get on a plane and I fly to another country, and then I bounce around from country to country until someone offers me a job, and then I fly back here.
wow.
I still think that's baller as hell. I think that's cool as shit.
Wow.
I think that works for him, and I don't know if that works for anybody else, but I do think it's important, I have found, when I'm unemployed, to travel.
I agree.
Which sounds reductive in the concept of like traveling is like damn near the most expensive thing you can do. But it's the only time you have to do it. And it's hard to be in Los Angeles and not have a job, especially in entertainment, because all your friends have jobs here. And so it can just be really painful to be here while everybody has a job. The first thing I try to cut back on, to loop back to your question, is like the stuff that I just like, I don't need, obviously. And I said earlier, like, don't cancel a gym membership, but I did cancel a gym membership because it was like a fancy gym I didn't need.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's just every person has to weigh it on their psyche versus what the weight is. The biggest mistake I generally see, kind of like what you said before, like refusing to lower their lifestyle creep. Most of the time, I see that happening with credit cards. I think credit cards are the devil's spawn as somebody who owns a credit card. But I generally see the biggest mistake I see is it's just having to do with debt, especially nowadays with buy now, pay later. I also want to be clear that like everyone's situation is different.
Yes.
And there are periods of time where like you have to take on debt. I don't want to shame everybody with debt because I think that's not fair. I think I think there are situations where it's like your car breaks down and you just don't have the cash and you got to put $3,000 of it down on your credit card, and like there's no way to get around that. Like that is the situation as it is.
I wanted to really quickly circle back to unemployment. So when you apply for unemployment, you get a certain amount of money in like your unemployment account.
It does cap. If you work for 10 years continuously, you're not continuously for 10 years
adding money to this account. So you can pull out the money until there's no more money left in the span of a year. So if you're not working for 6 months straight, you can pull that money out, and then when you're out of it, you're out of it. Yeah. If you get employed on a job for a very short amount of time,
you
1 month, 2 months, you can't collect unemployment, but that doesn't hinder you from being able to collect unemployment after that job is done. You can still collect the money from that account up to a year, and then when the year from when you first applied. So if you applied January 1st.
Oh, is that true? I didn't know that.
If you applied January 1st, you have on January 1st, 2025.
You have until
January 1st, 2026 to either use up all that money or find a job, and then you don't have to pull out from it. Now, if you continue to not be unemployed past that time, you have to reapply for unemployment.
I didn't know that. It's good to know.
So I just wanted to like clarify that for people. If you want to double check me, you totally can. You can look it up for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm
but for most,
very, very sure that this is the rules of it.
For most people, generally, you'll deposit the max amount of money that the state will let you with your paycheck each week. And then by the time you collect, you should be collecting $450 a week for up to 6 months.
Yes.
Generally. All rules of thumb, all subject to change and depending on your situation. It really depends how much you're paying into the fund, but for the most part, that's the rule of thumb that you can expect.
How long do you think you should be like unemployed until you try to think of another job?
Outside
or how long would you stay unemployed before you start considering like, oh, I need to pick up like a Starbucks job or a Target job or like a Ralph's job? Did I tell you? I don't know if I told you. Ralph's declined me.
Dude, last time I was unemployed, again, I had enough savings to last a while that I didn't like need to pick up a new job immediately. But dude, I went crazy last time. I was just like, I feel like I'm going nutso sitting in this apartment. So I thought, you know what would be perfect for me is like a part-time job at REI. And they had just opened a new REI in Marina Del Rey. And I was like, perfect. I applied to like every fucking role. I didn't get a goddamn interview. I didn't get anything. I was like, holy shit.
I do want to preface for people too that when you're working and then you're unemployed, there is absolutely no shame in taking a job like a Starbucks job or a Target job, or people who are like very much like, no, I'm here to work in film. I like wanted to come out for this. This is what I'm meant to do. I don't want to take a job like that. And it's like, no, if you have to, you have to. And no one's going to look down on you. No one's going to think, well, they gave up. Like, no one is going to think that. It's literally like, I need money to get by.
And if that means door dashing or Ubering or working at Target or whatever
exactly.
it is, you do you, King. You get whatever. You get your bag, whatever, however you have to.
Like last year, I was helping my friend, shout out to Zoom to Groom. I would literally drive dogs.
Dog walk.
I was in a van picking up dogs to bring to the groomer shop, and then I would bathe them and dry them, and I'd have to clean up their crap and do all this stuff. And this is not a shame. Like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, woe is me, but I had those moments where I was like, I worked on the Batman and I'm cleaning up dog shit. Like, and it was like, I didn't care because I was like, I have to do it. But it was just like every now and then you get like those moments of like, this sucks, but I have no other choice and I have to do it. And like, it's fine. I don't care. I spent a whole day chasing a dog because they got off their leash and I had to find and then they bit me and then it bit me.
I would also say, healthcare is a huge part of this where like, if you're unemployed for long enough, you will run out of your union healthcare if you're not paying into those days.
Yeah, I did run out of healthcare.
We live in America, and listen, we live in the system that we live in, and that means you generally have to be employed to get healthcare. Otherwise, you're going to be paying out of the ass for some type of like terrible plan on the open market. If you are unemployed and you need a specific kind of healthcare or healthcare plan, go get a job. Go, like, don't risk it. Like, go work at Starbucks or Target or Ralph's or wherever that has a decent healthcare plan that will give you the things that you need to do to survive.
I will also say, and this is I think it's on the MPIPH website, but there is, I think it's called like Entertainment Health Community or something.
Yes.
And if you are running out of
the health fund.
Yeah. If you are running out of healthcare I
The
did this.
MPTF, the Motion Picture Television Fund, something like that?
Yeah, I think it's something like that. But I did this because I did run out of healthcare, and I got on the phone with someone and they talked me through the whole thing. They talked me through like the plans. They talked me through if you want this covered or this covered, this is how much it would be. This is how much that would be. And like super helpful. All I had to tell them was which plan I wanted, and they did all the enrollment for me. They like got everything through. Like I didn't have to deal with actual healthcare companies. I was like physically talking to someone on the phone, and they were great with like emails and being able to like lay out everything for me. So if you are going to lose healthcare at any point, I highly recommend using the resources that the union gives you and helps provide for you, so to like help you get through this, especially for, I mean, healthcare is so complicated to understand.
Dude,
like if you need to go and look for it yourself. So to have just that resource of someone to talk it through with you is like very, very helpful.
I just want to point to a resource that is remarkably helpful, and I've gone back to a few times. There's a YouTuber named Brian David Gilbert that's done a YouTube video on breaking down the healthcare system. It's like silly and comedic. It is the best explainer of the healthcare system I've ever seen with regards to enrolling for healthcare. It's like, what is an open enrollment period? When are you eligible for open enrollment period? What is the marketplace? How do you navigate the marketplace? So if anybody is really like lost, sometimes that video is number one resource I sent them. Like, it's silly, but honestly, it's the best explainer I've ever seen. So let's talk about networking stuff. Let's pivot into networking stuff, I would say. When you're unemployed and you're trying to find that next gig, like actively find that next gig, do you have a large strategy? I know you said you send a lot of cold emails. Is that like is that your throw shit against the wall and see what sticks kind of approach?
So the cold emails happens when I've gone through all the people that I know that don't have anything.
Yeah.
And this is also like cold emails. I'm 7 months unemployed. What will happen is I'll essentially try to keep up with people while I am working. Might not be as many people, but I try to keep up with some people. And then I throw the little like, yeah, like, how are you doing? How's your project going? My project's going well. I'm going to be wrapping up in January. And sometimes if I'm getting close to it, I'll be like, I'm wrapping up in January, so I'll be hunting for that next job and just kind of like keep it there.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's people who I've been in contact with for a number of years that I feel comfortable just saying like, hey, I'm looking for my next job. Can I send you my resume? I don't do that with everybody. I only do it with people that I'm like comfortable doing that with. And so I kind of start the hunt either when the job is ending or right when the job has ended. But generally I'll do that, and then I'll reach out to everybody. I still have my little spreadsheet, so sometimes I'll go down.
Do you still maintain I was going to ask if you maintain your networking spreadsheet.
Sometimes I do. I more have it so that I can see a list of people that I want to reach out to, because there's so, like, you know, you get on so many jobs and there's so many amount of people that you just meet. Sometimes it's just literally hard to just remember everybody. So sometimes I'll reference that just as like, oh yeah, like I haven't spoken to them in a while. Let me like send them an email, do the typical, you know, let's get coffee, let's catch up. And then if they don't have anything, and as your unemployment continues to go on longer and longer and longer, then I might look for someone like on Instagram or something. If it's like they edited a film that I know someone who worked on it, maybe I can reach out to them and be like, oh, I'm friends with blah, blah, blah. Would love to meet up and talk to you about the job. So I try to do that when I am cold emailing. That's what I'll try to do. And I want to ask you this, actually. The awkward part is when you reach out to someone and then you get coffee and you chat with them, blah, blah, blah. And then 3 months go by. And then you're like, I should reach out to them again. But then you have to go back and it's like, oh, let's get coffee again. And then you're like, but I'm still unemployed. Like
nothing's
does
changed.
That feel weird? Does that feel weird for you? Like, I've done it before, but I want to know if you've done it and if it feels weird for you too.
I have done stuff like that. Again, I take probably a very different approach to networking when I'm unemployed, but like I have done stuff like that before where you're like, well, I want to like keep talking to this person because like either there was a good lead there or
maybe they have one now.
Yeah, or I want to just keep myself top of mind, anything like that.
Exactly.
I generally think probably 3 months is too close. I always tell people like, maybe, I think like 4 is generally like a good number. And I always like to...
Maybe not 3 months, but like
a period of time
that you've seen them the first time and then you want to see them the next time.
100%. And this is a part of like my networking strategy, which is probably not the one that I would recommend for everybody. But if I'm talking to somebody that I think like I want to work with one day, or I think like they're, somebody who I admire or whatever, if we're talking about something in a conversation, the worst thing you can do is to email somebody and be like, let me give you an update on my life. What is totally candid, I think, and totally okay, is to ask for an update on their life based off of something you guys talked about. So I have done this before where like, there's an editor I really like. I think like he or she is really cool. And maybe I'm not looking for a job right now. Maybe I am. It doesn't really matter. But I just think like this person is somebody I want to build a long lasting friendship and relationship with. And we're having drinks or we're having a coffee and they mention, oh yeah, my daughter has her softball game coming up or whatever. Or she's in the softball tournament. And we chat about their daughter. Maybe 3 months later, I'll be like, how did your daughter's softball tournament go? Did she win? That is a much more engaging question to be like, what's up with you? Like, I was thinking about our chat the other day. It was so fun. And I was thinking about blank, this thing that you mentioned. And I wanted to ask how it was going. You mentioned you were writing this script. I try to avoid topics when I reach out for stuff like that about like, hey, you mentioned you were starting this movie. Is it happening? Like that's a shitty question to ask.
No.
But I think something that is about their personal life, especially if it's away from work, is the best kind of thing to ask. And I always like to phrase stuff like that, not in like I'm looking for a job way, but in a like, hey, like cards on the table. I think you're a really cool person and I would like to continue this relationship. Like here's a lead into a conversation about this thing that we were talking about where I can ask you a question about your life.
I mean, that's usually what I do, but on like the first email. So
the first email.
Yeah, the first
You've
email.
never talked to them before, or the first follow-up?
Like if I'm off a job and I decide to email them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, how are you doing? How is blah, blah, blah going? And then I might say like, my job's wrapping up soon.
Yeah, I think
Or
that's
like,
fine.
But I don't write like a paragraph.
No,
like,
you should
but
write
I'll
a
do
sentence.
like one or two sentences of like, just trying to stay busy, learning Python, and like, hope you're doing well. But like, I still ask them how their life is going.
Yeah.
It's just like the first time I'm sending them an email, it is generally like, I try to give them like a very quick update, like a
That's
tad
interesting.
little like.
I say nothing about my life. I hate talking about, I don't even want to. Listen, I hate talking about my life. I'm on a
Okay, but
podcast,
if you
so I just talk
receive an
about my
email
life.
from someone that's like, hey, how you doing? How's the project going? Talk
That's great.
soon, bye.
Yeah, I would love that.
Really?
Yeah, but that's a me thing. It's a me thing.
Yeah.
Like, I would love that. Like, if somebody, I rattle off if I have coffee with somebody. Now I'm going to get a bunch of emails because I've been having coffee with a bunch of people lately. So I'm going to get a bunch of emails.
I feel like I think the reason why I do it, I think the reason why I do it though is to try to set up kind of a conversation. Because then sometimes people will they'll be like, oh, you're doing that. How is that going? Like it's still kind of as opposed to like,
I think that
hey,
can work.
what's up?
I think that can totally work.
But I guess it depends.
I think
it depends on how you approach it too.
And it also depends on the kind of person you are. But on my networking spreadsheet, which I do always boot back up when I'm unemployed for a period of time, it always comes back around. I don't update it when I'm employed, but when I'm unemployed, it always comes back around. And I have a category for the things we talked about. And I keep a running tally of like everything. I'll be like, we discussed their wife's new job. We discussed their vacation to the Caribbean. I keep every single little tally of it. So when I send an email 3 months later, whatever, 4 months later, I've got the things that we talked about and I can ask follow-ups on how things are going, especially if it's something not related to film. Let's move down the list here to some other stuff. To give people, we like to give people tangible advice. Let's presume this is not for the post PAs in the audience, but for the assistant editors and the editors. When you're unemployed, are there job titles you look for people when you're trying to network? Are there I don't know, what are the type of people you were trying to find and network with and talk to when you're unemployed?
All of them.
All of them.
The people that I try to find are people that I have maybe some kind of common ground with. I don't know this person, but they have 15 mutual friends of mine that they worked on this film with. Literally, I did that with Amelia Allwarden.
Oh, did you really?
We never met.
Oh, is that how you met Amelia?
I literally cold messaged her on Instagram and was like, I hear your name all the time.
Yeah.
Why don't we finally meet and have coffee? You're basically in my life, but not. So why don't we just meet? So that's what I'll do. I'll try. And whether they're a supervisor, an assistant editor, like the position doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And I think Amelia is probably a really good example of that. Of like, I probably have a laundry list of people that like I'm aware of basically vis-a-vis through Instagram. And when I'm unemployed next, those will probably be the first 7 people I reach out to because I have the time to be like, hey, this is silly that we don't know each other. We should get drinks. I also think like the first people I run to, Not necessarily when I'm unemployed, because I these are people I genuinely enjoy, but there are quite a few editors I have worked with over the years that I just like haven't had a chance to talk to again.
Yeah,
since
I'll do that too.
Those are the
Yeah.
first people I go talk to, just to be like, what's up with you? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's really hard when I'm working. There's a lot of assistant editors I've worked with over the years, like Sarah and Zachary and even Hanukkah and other people, where it's like, these are people I work with a lot or just know, people I just genuinely enjoy their company like, a ton. But it's really hard to hang out when I'm employed on a show. And when I'm unemployed, it's like, that's the perfect opportunity to be like, hey, I want to go see this movie. Do you want to go see it? Let's just catch up. I still think and recommend people to listen to Hanukkah's episode on networking, because I still think it's the best one that we've done on it, where I take his advice really much as like his advice that he espoused in that episode is like a guidance for what I do nowadays, which is like, I'm looking for people I could be friends with.
Yeah.
If like the only thing we have in common is the fact that we share the same job or some same industry, I just have a really hard time connecting with those people if we just have nothing else in common.
Do you want to ask these other two ones?
Yeah,
I've never had an issue with this, but go ahead.
The question that Leanne and I are referring to here is, how do you explain gaps in your resume without sounding defensive? That's really a way of saying like, this is not really something that happens in film necessarily, because I think everybody gets it that you could go long periods of time without being from one show to the next. And nobody really interrogates you about why you haven't had a show in X amount of months. But I do think it's something I want to address, because I do think it does come up to an extent, or people worry about needlessly. And I just kind of want to ask you about how you do this in an interview about telling a story about your career. I mean, we alluded to it earlier. Look at somebody's IMDb and it's like 2020, they were on this movie. 2021, they were on this movie. 2022, they were on this movie. And you can just tell yourself a very simple narrative about somebody's career. And so I like to think about it in that way, as like telling a narrative. But I wanted to ask you, when you're in a interview and somebody's asking you about the movies that you've done, especially if there's a gap in between movies, like, do you address it? You're like, and then I was unemployed, or do you just say, and then I did this, and then I did this? Or I guess like, how do you tell the story of your career while including unemployment or excluding unemployment in telling that story, basically for the purposes of getting a job?
So I actually didn't know this about people who weren't in film, that having a gap in your resume could look bad. And maybe, I guess just because I was never in that position.
This does still happen in film. It just normally happens for people that work at studios, not for people that work at.
It's interesting to hear that, because I didn't know until maybe the last couple of years that could be something that people frowned upon.
Yeah.
I will say, one, yes, I will just straight up say I was unemployed if it comes up, but the way that my resume is, it just lists credits. So I don't have the year, I don't have the length of time that I was working on it. It's just like,
I think that's a great answer.
Columns.
I mean, that's like you telling a story. That's what I mean.
I basically
like, right?
just have one column is the title and my job. The other column is who stars in it. And then the other column is like producer, director,
You have the
editor,
star?
whoever. Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to see. I don't think I've ever seen your resume.
I'll show you.
have stars?
It's very, very
That's
simple.
a fun idea. I've never done that. My
Yeah.
resume is very similar. You and I have very similar resumes.
So if someone were to see my resume, they don't physically see, unless like you said, unless looking on IMDb, but they're not seeing the year or how long I was on it. I don't indulge them in anything unless it's specifically asked to me. And then I try to give them a very base explanation. And if they're fine with it, they're fine with it. And if they want to delve deeper, then we can dive deeper. And I'm not afraid to say I was unemployed. I just try to keep my explanations to a minimum.
I think the thing that I was trying to get with this question is really explaining to people, like, filmmaking is a business where nobody gives a fuck if you were unemployed. This is not like being an accountant or something where it's like, why were you unemployed for 6 months or whatever? And you have to be like, well, my mom was sick and I had to go take care of her. And you have to tell some complicated story.
Yeah.
Like, you can just be like, I don't know, I was looking for a job. Like, I didn't find it. Also, I've never been asked this question in an interview. I know other people have been asked, but I have never been asked this question.
I've never been asked this.
So, but I do think, like, in general, like, it's not a bad idea to go into an interview with a confident idea about your story. You don't have to tell every single detail. And I think, like, we also are in a business where, like, the greatest among us have been unemployed for longer than they would like. I also think, like, you should tell people you're unemployed, or other people just don't know. If I'm employed and somebody says, hey, I need an assistant editor for this feature for blank. I know you're working. Do you know of anybody? My brain goes to the people who've been unemployed the longest.
Yeah.
Like, that's where my brain goes.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way that I operate. I go, who do I trust? Who's not going to look bad if I send them forward? And then let's go down the laundry list of who's been unemployed the longest. If you're unemployed for longer than a certain period of time, nobody is like, well, what's wrong with them?
When I've been asked about jobs, when they were more plentiful than now, very first thing that someone always will email me with is, hey, Leanne, are you working now?
Yeah, I get that all the time.
So if you're like, yeah, because you're trying to look like that you are, like they want to know if you're unemployed.
Oh, I've done this mistake too.
Like you literally just say, hey, are you working now? Because they have a job for you or they want to put you up for a
100%.
job. So completely tell them
This
you're
is
unemployed.
something- I'm totally with you. I've had to get comfortable with this because people have called me and been like, are you working right now? And in my brain, I'm like, well, I don't want to admit that I'm unemployed. So I'll be like, no, yeah, I'm doing some projects. And they're like, oh, okay, well, because I was thinking, I'm like, no, I will take that. like it's so dumb that I do that, but you shouldn't do that. Like you should just be like, if somebody's asking if you're working, the question they're asking is, are you gainfully employed for 40 hours a week or more? Like, that's the question they're asking.
They have a job that they either have or they want to put you up for.
Yes.
So 100% say, I am not working.
Yes.
What do you have?
100%.
Don't say it that way, but you all get the idea.
My last question is, you alluded to this earlier, and I'm curious that I actually don't do this. You take classes, you do stuff when you're unemployed? Because you said Python, which I guess some assistant editors have used coding for stuff.
Programming and coding is not something that you absolutely need for the job. I wanted to learn it so I could understand the basics of it, so that if I ever need to go into like FileMaker and write a code for something, I would be able to either do it or understand what it looks like and what it means. I knew I wasn't going to learn it like 100% back to back. I could write a game code right like now and today. I just wanted to learn it and understand, just to understand the language of it.
Was that your first coding class you taken?
It was, yeah. So that's also why, because I had no knowledge of it. I think I did a FileMaker Pro as well, but
I have used coding at literally one time in my career, but I have known other assistant editors to do it. And there's even people like Evan Schiff, who just cut Frankenstein. He's got Shifty Tools, which is like an amazing database of the most proprietary random tools that are so helpful in the one situation that you need them in. I use a tool, a website right now called Editing Tools that's got a million different converters for markers, because I'm going back and forth between Premiere and Avid for stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a lot of random things that coding can be helpful for, but I never really thought about it. But having an engineering background in any kind of way, if you can have a fundamental understanding of the way computers work, it just helps you have a relationship with these softwares in a way that you're like, can diagnose problems easier. I can look in my activity monitor, and I can be like, oh, this is using up way too much RAM. Oh, I've allocated too much RAM to Premiere. Like I need to lower, like I know what that means. I don't think it's a bad idea when you're unemployed to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
If it's something that just is making your skills stronger, I tell people, especially post PAs, I tell them all the time, like, you're doing yourself a disservice if the thing you're not learning right now is how to color grade. You can't touch an Avid when you're a post PA. You know what you're allowed to touch? A Resolve. You're technically allowed to use Resolve. You're allowed to use After Effects. You're allowed to use these other tangential tools and stuff like that. Like, especially when you're unemployed, like I think every assistant editor should know how to use these tools, because for one, it gives you a technical understanding of what the hell's going on with your footage. And then it gives you a new skill set to take to that next show or help you get that next job. So I am a big fan of taking classes or teaching yourself stuff, or especially, you said you did a FileMaker course?
Yeah. So like I said before, I use this website called udemy.com. It's the letter U and then DEMY.com. The courses look like that they're really expensive, but they have a bunch of sales. So like I took a Python for beginners for like $10.
There used to be lynda.com, and I think that got bought by LinkedIn. And if you have a LinkedIn Pros account, you can have access to all those courses as well.
So lynda.com is what I use for FileMaker.
Ah, okay.
So I like, and this is just me personally, watch the video, literally write down notes and write down like what they're saying for me to understand. And then Udemy specifically has like practice courses. FileMaker was so hard to find any kind of like, which again, Python, it was helpful for, because if I ever need to write a script in FileMaker
is the backend Python in FileMaker?
I think so.
That makes sense.
Just anything that I think of that I think could be useful in any type of capacity, I will try to like keep those skills sharp while I'm unemployed.
But the nice thing about Python is it's really helpful for weird random tasks that you as an individual need to do. It's the best language for stuff like that. If you need to throw TXT files in and then do something to it and transform it into some other kind of thing, I always think Python is the best for stuff like that.
What do you do to keep your skills sharp, Michael?
Me? My skills are always sharp as a knife. I mean, I'm a nerd for this stuff, so like I'm constantly watching videos and stuff in my free time about like random post-production shit. But I mean, I like this stuff a lot. So, you know, I'll put videos on in the background about like some new weird codec that's coming out from Red or something that I want to like know about. If I'm trying to keep my skills sharp, something like that, or I'm trying to learn something new, I really like doing shorts. I like doing my friends' shorts, and then I like pitching to them like a new thing that I want to do. There's still a few things on my list of things that I don't know that I would love to learn one day. That I would love to learn Blender or how to do animatics. I would love to learn how to do one day. I've thought about taking a drawing course to learn how to do storyboards. I try to think out of the box when I'm learning a new tool. Again, I am a proselytizer for DaVinci Resolve and color grading as a thing that I think every assistant editor should, if you are trying to stand out from the crowd, learn how to do. It's not that hard. If you learn the principles of color grading, you have to learn the principles of codecs and color spaces and file formats and onlining and blank and all that stuff. For one, I think like that is now principally a basis of how an offline cutting room works, is a lot of this stuff. And there's too many people that don't know it, and I wish more of us did know it. So when I'm unemployed, I'm oftentimes learning new stuff about the online. Again, I really like camera codecs. I like new cameras. I like seeing the new sensors. I like learning about how that stuff works. So, I mean, the stuff like that. I like weird stuff. I probably should learn more Avid shortcuts, but I'm like, nah, I get away with what I know, right? Like, I know enough to be dangerous. So there's probably more I could learn, but I don't typically go for that. I typically go for the weirder stuff. Last two questions. What has changed about how you approach unemployment now versus when you were first starting out?
I think that I don't know if I was naive or what it was, but I remember first starting out and having no fear of unemployment. I was just like, I'm going to get a job, which I did, thankfully. But then when I wasn't employed after it, there was not really a fear of like, when's the next one coming? And I also don't know if that was the times, because I kept hearing everybody needs an assistant right now. Everybody, like, I just didn't have any like, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Yep.
Now, with the way the industry is and the way that I know I can be without having a job for over a year, I'm like a lot more concerned and more like reserved in, I guess, my spending, or I'm a little bit more mindful about, I might not have a job for a long period of time.
I mean, I think.
What about you? Did you have a different
I would say
approach?
that I have a very similar story. I mean, like
okay.
when I was first starting out, it was also like my first job was in 2020, and that was like the beginning of like what ended up being a crazy run for 2-3 years. No, I'm totally with you. I also think, like I alluded to earlier, but like, being unemployed really for the first time really taught me a lot about like what I was comfortable with and what I wasn't comfortable with. So what has really changed about my thinking is not necessarily being afraid of unemployment, but anticipating it and being like, this is going to happen. I'm going to plan for the worst case scenario. And it's just about rolling with the punches. I really think that's what I've learned, but planning on getting punched. So I think for me, that's really been the big thing. And it's also not trying to be better, but not feeling any shame in it. Not feeling like I'm lesser than other people, especially when I'm not working and I see other people working, not being like, well, what are they doing right that I'm doing wrong? And this also goes for like, sometimes you're on a team and then that team doesn't hire you for the next movie. And that's not always your fault. And it's not like indicative if you did something wrong. Sometimes the way that you fit into a role or a team just doesn't fit for every project. But it's just about being like, you know what, I'm going to hold my head high and I'm going to look for the next thing. And that's just all the best you can do. That's all you can do.
I think when you're starting unemployment, just keep yourself open to anything that comes your way, whether it's, film, or maybe it's like side gig for YouTube or like some social media video. Then also, as we've keep pounding on this podcast, is planning and understanding where your financials are.
So last thing I would ask is, if somebody is looking at their first unemployment bout, what would be your fundamental principles to that person? Encapsulating everything: life, finances, anxiety. What are your top line items? No one's going to do it perfect. I'm going to tell you, your first time you're unemployed, you're going to make a bunch of mistakes. The first 12 times you're unemployed. I'm on number 3, so I expect another 9.
I don't know how many times I've been unemployed at this point. Honestly, I'm like thinking, you're saying like 3, and I'm like thinking back, I'm like, how many times have I been unemployed? I have no idea.
Yeah. Try to wrap it up in a nutshell. Yeah. What are your top line items for somebody who is going through unemployed to focus on addressing?
presuming that you've planned your financials and everything, my advice would be to, one, go to all of your doctor's appointments.
Oh, yes.
Schedule them all because it's very hard to do it while you're working. Do your physical, do your dentist, do all of that. And that'll give you a good week. That'll give you a nice week of busyness.
Get that blood work done that you have been putting off that your doctor told you to go do.
Yes. Now, when you get to the point where that's all taken care of and you are starting to go crazy, that is where the schedule comes in and you plan out your day. Like we both said, working out is always great because one, you're feeling productive. Two, because you're active, it's like your body's like a little bit more, it's like less depressed. Walk and listen to music. Walk and listen to us. Listen to our podcast.
Basically, like it's a time to invest in yourself. Hank used to tell me, he used to be like, you ever seen this movie? I'd be like, no. You ever seen this movie? No. And there was some movie he said something like, you know a lot about stuff, but do you know what it means to hurt? Like, do you know what it means to yearn, Mike? I don't remember. He said something like that. And he was like, watching movies is a part of your education. It's a part of bringing something to a cutting room. But he's also like, it's not just movies. It's like, are you going to concerts? Are you experiencing life? Like, are you doing stuff? Are you investing in yourself? And honestly, unemployment is a perfect period of time to invest in yourself. It's culturally and educationally, physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever you need to do to make yourself the most interesting person to come back into a cutting room and bring something new to that room of creatives is not time spent wasting, basically.
All right. Should we go into a splice and spew?
Splice and spew.
Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go.
Mine is both a splice and spew. I recently saw Hamnet, and I have a lot of feelings about this movie because I both really enjoyed it and also sort of disliked it a little bit. There was a lot, I don't know how to feel about it. Without giving anything away, basically, I really enjoyed the film, everything about it except for the plot. The cinematography, the music, the acting, the production, everything was beautiful. It was very great. The plot was so thin that I got bored really quickly, and I really wanted to like it. I was looking forward to this. This was like my third time trying to go see this movie. I finally did. Like I said, beautifully done. I'm pretty sure that my letterbox, it starts with, I need a lot of ice for this slow burn. It is a slow burn, people. There's like things that I really liked about it. And then I was like, I liked that, but that moment went on for like an hour of the film. Basically, I just wish that there was more in it. And I know that I think it's based off of a book. So the book just genuinely might not have it in it, which is fair. That's fine. I understand. But I just wish that there was more that happened in it because the things that I did like just spanned for way too long. So that is my splice and spew because I don't know how to feel about it. I still don't know how to feel about it. Maybe the other thing is that I don't really get Shakespearean dialogue, not that they speak Shakespearean the entire time, but they definitely had like an olden language and it was really garbled. So because I saw it in the theater, I did not have the luxury of subtitles. So maybe I need to watch it with subtitles and I'll like understand it better and like have a more appreciation for it. I don't know.
I would like to splice about an old editor that is still a very dear friend of mine. He lives in New York. His name is Michael Taylor. If anybody's ever in New York, you should go to his events. He is part of ACE, and he runs ACE Presents at the Metrograph in New York City. Anyway, I love Michael Taylor. I want to splice about his movie, My Undesirable Friends Part 1. I think everyone should see this movie. I think it's I actually genuinely think it's one of the most important movies that's been made. It's a documentary. I will warn everybody, it's 5.5 hours long.
Holy shit.
It is.
Wait, this part 1? Is that what you said too?
Yes. It's 324 minutes long.
Okay, can you tell us what it's about?
Yeah.
What's the documentary about?
It's Julia Lockdev. And she's done a few scripted features over the last few years, all of which are really fun and really brilliant. This is her first documentary. She was born in the Soviet Union, and so she speaks Russian. So she has some friends in Russia who in 2021, it's political, it's really hard to explain, but basically these journalists in Russia were given this tag on them that called them foreign agents. And it basically meant that every time they communicated anything, even if it was like a social media post, like here's my coffee, they had to like put this paragraph disclaimer on everything that they did. And so she went to make a documentary about her friends who had all been slapped with this tag. And the long and short of it is a lot of people got tagged with this foreign agent tag, even though they weren't foreign agents. That's kind of the rub of it. Anyway, this documentary is not about that. She's there making a documentary about this, and then the Ukrainian war happens while she's there. And these journalists have to flee the country.
Oh, wow.
Because they're anti-Putin and they have to flee the country. So this movie ends up being about these really young people. I mean, most of them are in their 20s, just about how difficult their lives are in this period of time in Russia. It is extremely raw. I mean, it's a movie that's basically like all shot on an iPhone, just her there for months as the lead up to this war happens, and then the immediate fallout immediately following this war, and just all the shit that happens. I got to meet Julia and Michael when they came to premiere the film in LA, and I got to meet one of the subjects of the film, and I mean, just Ksenia Mironova, I believe is her name. A really heavy movie, a really important movie, a movie that will just make you feel what it's like to have been a young person who's a journalist in Russia at this period of time. And that's all I can really say about it. That's what it is. Politics aside, it's just it's an examination of these young people and what their lives are like having to live through this. They won at the Berlin Film Festival for Best Film. They just won at the Gotham Awards for Best Film. If you haven't seen this film, if you can find 5.5 hours to sit down and watch this movie, I know this is a long splice, but it's a really important movie to me, having watched it and supporting my friend Michael who worked on it. And I also think it's just a really important movie. And having met one of the subjects, I think it's an important film this year. So if you have a chance to go see it, My Undesirable Friends, Part 1. Part 2, they're still editing. I talked to Michael and Julia about it. They're still working on it right now. They're hoping to have it out, I think, next year, but we'll see when that comes out. So anyway,
awesome.
That's my splice.
Cass, do you want to go?
Honestly, one I wanted to say, because I've been thinking about it, because this is the last one of the year, is honestly a splice just about sips and clips. This is honestly, for real, this is such a cool podcast. I've had such an enjoyable time helping out with it. Like, I'm genuinely honored. I've been pessimistic at times, like I think a lot of people have, about the state of the industry, about my place in it. But honestly, this podcast and listening to it has gotten me, more jazzed about everything. It's gotten me to work harder. It's gotten me excited. And like, you guys do this for the love of the game. You didn't have to do an episode where you didn't interview anyone and you talk about unemployment. You care about the actual craft. You care about what you're doing. You care about the people who are doing it. And it's just cool. It's cool because there aren't a lot of resources like this, because it's a very specific job and what happens with it. So yeah, sips and clips forever. Very cool. Thank you.
And Cassidy is the third leg of our stool. Without him, we would not be able to have a show. So this is kudos. My splice is about Cassidy.
Cassidy.
My splice is about Cassidy being the thankless, the man behind the curtain who
Truly,
runs this whole show.
truly.
So
If it wasn't for him, we'd be blasting your ears. And I also want to give out to shout out to Zach as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because
For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Cassidy helps us with the sound so that we're not peaking as much, but Zach helps with Michael might talk so quiet that
Or
you can't
scream.
even hear it, or scream,
which I'm
and
prone
Zach's
to do.
the one who levels all that out. So both Cassidy and Zach are doing a great job. We appreciate them, and we love to have them here. And I hope that they can continue to be with us.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode of Sips and Clips. Catch us on Instagram at Sips and Clips Pod. And you can email us at sipsandclipspod@gmail.com. And remember, you keep on sipping.
And we'll keep on clipping.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Sips and Clips is a podcast produced by Leanne McFalls and Michael Schusterman. Logo designed by Mike Knoll. Production sound by Cassidy Lagan. Post-production sound by Zach Griffin. Follow us on Instagram at Sips and Clips Pod, or email us at sipsandclipspod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.